The blueprint Sophia Reeves stared at her reflection in the gleaming glass doors of the Silverstein Tower, barely recognizing herself in the tailored charcoal suit that had replaced her once permanent hoodie and jeans. 3 years ago, she'd been coding until dawn in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, subsisting on instant ramen and dreams. Now she was about to present to potential investors who could take Quantum Edge to heights she'd only imagined while sketching algorithms on napkins. Ready for this? Julian Mercer appeared behind her, his hand finding the small of her back. His confident smile reflected in the glass beside her uncertain one. "As ready as I'll ever be," Sophia replied, twisting the modest engagement ring on her finger, a promise made 6 months earlier when Quantum Edge was still just a brilliant idea they'd built together over midnight conversations and shared vision. Julian looked immaculate as always, his dark hair perfectly styled, his suit seeming to have been tailored by angels. Sophia had fallen in love with his ambition first, then his mind, and finally his heart, or what she believed was his heart. That was before Quantum Edge had become the most talked-about AI security startup in New York's tech scene. Remember, keep the technical jargon minimal. These investors care about return, not revolutionary code architecture, Julian whispered as they stepped into the elevator. "But the architecture is what makes us different," Sophia protested quietly. "It's what I've spent 3 years perfecting." Julian's smile tightened slightly. "Trust me on this. I know how to speak their language." The meeting room buzzed with anticipation. 8 potential investors sat around a mahogany table, their expressions varying from skepticism to curiosity. Sophia recognized Vanessa Blackwell immediately, the venture capitalist whose backing could single-handedly secure their future. "Ms. Blackwell?" "Gentlemen," Julian began smoothly, "thank you for your time today. We're excited to show you how Quantum Edge is redefining cybersecurity." For 20 minutes, Julian commanded the room with charm and business acumen, barely referencing the technology that made their platform unique. When he did, he spoke as if the ideas had been his alone. Sophia noticed how he used "I" instead of "we" with increasing frequency. "And now," Julian finally said, "Sophia will walk you through some technical aspects." Sophia stepped forward, her nervousness evaporating as she began explaining the adaptive machine learning algorithms she'd developed. The room's energy shifted. Investors leaned forward. Questions flowed. Intelligent, engaged questions that Julian couldn't answer without glancing at her. "Remarkable work, Ms. Reeves," Vanessa Blackwell said when Sophia finished. "Your approach to quantum-resistant encryption is unlike anything I've seen. How did you develop this framework?" Before Sophia could answer, Julian smoothly interjected. "We've been refining this concept since our Stanford days." "It's been quite the journey," Sophia blinked. She'd never attended Stanford. Her education came from community college and self-teaching. Julian had gone to Stanford, but they hadn't even known each other then. The meeting concluded with handshakes and promises of follow-up conversations. As they packed up their materials, Vanessa approached Sophia directly. "Miss Reeves, I'd like to have lunch sometime. Just the 2 of us." "I'm fascinated by your background." "She'd love to," Julian answered before Sophia could speak. "After we finalize the paperwork, of course." Later that evening, Sophia found Julian opening champagne in their loft apartment, the Manhattan skyline glittering beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, a far cry from where they'd started. "To us," Julian toasted. "Blackwell's in. She wants to lead the funding round." "That's amazing," Sophia said, clinking her glass against his. "But Julian, why did you say that thing about Stanford?" Julian's expression didn't change, but something cooled in his eyes. It sounded better. "These people respect pedigree." "But it wasn't true. It was aspirational truth," he said with a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. "Sometimes the story matters more than the facts." Sophia felt something shift between them, subtle but unmistakable. As Julian took a call in the other room, she opened her laptop, reviewing the company formation documents they'd signed months ago. For the first time, she began to read the fine print carefully, a quiet unease settling in her stomach like a stone. The takeover. The boardroom felt colder than Sophia remembered, despite the summer heat pressing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. 6 months had passed since that first investment meeting, and Quantum Edge had expanded at a dizzying pace. New offices, 48 employees, and a valuation that made financial headlines. "I'm concerned about our development timeline," Sophia said, pointing to projections on the screen. "We're promising features to clients before our engineering team confirms they're viable." Across the table, Julian leaned back in his chair, a subtle smile playing at his lips. The 5 board members, all his selections, exchanged glances. "Innovation requires aggressive goals," Julian countered smoothly. "Our investors expect rapid growth." "Not at the expense of solid engineering," Sophia insisted. "We're building security software. It needs to be reliable, not just flashy for demos." Harrison Powell, the silver-haired venture capitalist Julian had charmed onto the board, cleared his throat. "Sophia, markets wait for no one. Perhaps your perfectionism is becoming an impediment to progress." The word perfectionism hung in the air like an accusation. Sophia felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the same sensation she'd experienced with increasing frequency in recent weeks whenever she disagreed with Julian in public. "It's not perfectionism to ensure we deliver what we promise," she replied, keeping her voice steady. Later that evening, she found Julian in their home office, reviewing documents she didn't recognize. "What happened in there today?" she asked quietly. Julian didn't look up. "You undermined me in front of the board." "I was being honest about our capabilities." "Your honesty will cost us millions," Julian snapped, finally meeting her eyes. "This company needs visionary leadership, not technical nitpicking." "This company needs both," Sophia said. "That's why we were supposed to be partners." Julian's expression softened suddenly. He stood, crossing the room to take her hands. "We are partners. In everything. But you've been under tremendous stress lately. The board members have noticed." "What are you talking about?" "Your anxiety. The emotional outbursts in meetings. Your resistance to necessary growth." Sophia pulled her hands away. "What emotional outbursts? When have I ever—" "See? This is exactly what I'm talking about." Julian's voice was gentle, reasonable. "You don't even realize how you're coming across." The gaslighting continued for weeks. Small comments about her emotional state in front of colleagues. Important emails she was mysteriously left off. Development decisions made while she was traveling to meet clients. Each incident was minor enough that objecting would make her seem paranoid, yet together they formed a pattern she couldn't ignore. Then came the morning she arrived at the office to find her access badge denied. The receptionist, someone she'd personally hired, looked away uncomfortably. "Mr. Mercer asked that you be shown to the conference room when you arrived," she said, not meeting Sophia's eyes. Julian was waiting with Harrison Powell and the company's legal counsel. A thick document on the table before them. "What's happening?" Sophia asked, though the sick feeling in her stomach told her she already knew. "The board met last night," Julian said, his expression professionally sympathetic. "We've decided a change in leadership is necessary. A change in, you can't remove me from my own company." Harrison slid the document toward her. "Section 8.4 of the operating agreement gives the board authority to remove officers deemed unfit to serve. Your recent behavior has made this necessary." "My behavior?" Sophia echoed, disbelieving. Julian looked pained, the perfect picture of reluctance. "Your emotional instability. The paranoid accusations, the technical delays disguised as perfectionism. It's been documented for months." With sudden clarity, Sophia understood all those small moments. The meetings she was excluded from, the conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. Julian hadn't just been pushing her aside. He'd been building a case. "The board has approved a settlement," the lawyer said, pointing to figures that blurred before Sophia's eyes. "Generous given the circumstances." Sophia looked at the man she'd once planned to marry, the company she'd built line by painstaking line of code, and the engagement ring that suddenly felt like a shackle. In one fluid motion, she removed the ring and placed it on the document. "You orchestrated this from the beginning," she said quietly. "The moment we got funding." For a split second, triumph flickered in Julian's eyes before disappearing behind practiced concern. "Security will escort you to collect your personal items," he said, as if she hadn't spoken. By afternoon, Sophia's existence had been erased from Quantum Edge, her nameplate, her office, her founding story. Walking out of the building for the last time, carrying a small box of belongings, she heard Julian's voice drift from an open doorway. It's unfortunate, but necessary. The company needs stable leadership to reach its potential. That night, in her empty apartment, Julian had already moved his things out. Another piece of his meticulous planning. Sophia sat surrounded by darkness, her laptop open to headlines announcing Julian Mercer as the visionary founder of Quantum Edge. She closed the computer and did something unexpected. She smiled. They thought they'd broken her. They had no idea what she was capable of building from these ashes. The reinvention. The Tokyo skyline glittered against the night, a constellation of human ambition rendered in neon and glass. Sophia stood at the window of her minimalist apartment, watching rain trace patterns down the glass. 14 months had passed since she'd walked out of Quantum Edge for the last time. 14 months of rebuilding herself from the ground up. "Your proposal is impressive," said Hiroshi Tanaka, CEO of Nexus Systems, his voice clear through her laptop speakers. "But implementing such architecture across our global platform would be challenging." "Most worthwhile things are," Sophia replied, turning from the window to face the video call. "But I've designed the transition to be incremental, minimizing disruption while maximizing security benefits." The Japanese executive nodded thoughtfully. "And you would oversee this personally?" "Every step, as I have with all my consulting clients." After the call ended with a tentative agreement, Sophia added Nexus Systems to her growing list of high-profile clients. What had begun as freelance consulting to survive had evolved into something much more strategic. Each client, carefully selected, meticulously served, was a piece in a larger puzzle she was assembling. Her phone buzzed with a message from Naomi Zhang, a brilliant data scientist she'd met at a cybersecurity conference in Singapore 3 months earlier. "Just saw Quantum Edge's quarterly report, down 22% from projections. Julian's getting desperate." Sophia wasn't surprised. She'd been tracking Quantum Edge's trajectory through industry contacts and public filings. Julian had prioritized rapid expansion over solid engineering, exactly as she'd feared. The foundation was cracking under the weight of his promises. "Time for phase 2? Naomi texted again. "Almost," Sophia replied. "One more piece to place." That piece materialized the next morning in an email from William Torres, a former Quantum Edge board member who had resigned shortly after her ouster. The subject line read simply, "We should talk." Over a secure video call, Torres didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Julian's leadership is driving Quantum Edge into the ground," he said. "The security flaws in the Beijing implementation cost us the entire Asian market. The board is finally seeing him for what he is." "And what's that?" Sophia asked, keeping her expression neutral. "A salesman posing as a visionary," Torres replied. "We need the real architect back." Sophia allowed herself a small smile. "I'm not interested in salvaging Julian's mess, William." What if Julian wasn't in the picture anymore? The question hung between them like a promise, or a threat. Torres continued, "There's a board meeting next week. Several members want him removed. I've been asked to feel out potential replacements." Sophia leaned back in her chair, considering. This was developing faster than she'd anticipated, but her preparation had been thorough. For months, she'd been building relationships with key players in the tech security world, positioning herself as a sought-after consultant rather than a founder betrayed. Her client list now included 3 companies that competed directly with Quantum Edge, companies whose security solutions were outperforming Julian's promises. "I'm listening," she said finally. Over the next week, Sophia coordinated with Naomi and their growing network of allies, brilliant minds she'd connected with during her exile. Together, they prepared a comprehensive analysis of Quantum Edge's technical vulnerabilities and a detailed roadmap for correction. When she landed in New York after 15 months away, the city felt both foreign and familiar. She checked into a hotel under a pseudonym and met Torres for dinner at an upscale restaurant in Tribeca. "The vote is tomorrow," he confirmed, sliding a folder across the table. 7 of 11 board members have indicated they'll support removing Julian. They don't know you're my proposed replacement yet. Sophia reviewed the documents, financial reports showing Quantum Edge hemorrhaging money, client complaints about software failures, employee turnover rates approaching 40%. Julian built his house on sand, Torres said. Your architecture was solid, but he modified it beyond recognition to meet impossible deadlines. And the clients I've been consulting for have been implementing the evolved version of my original vision, Sophia said quietly. Torres looked at her with new understanding. This wasn't accidental. You've been building a competing framework from exile. Not competing, succeeding. Sophia closed the folder. I never signed a non-compete. Julian was too confident I was finished to bother with one. For the first time in over a year, Sophia dreamed of the company she'd created. Not as it had been, but as it could be, rebuilt on principles of integrity and innovation rather than ego and deception. The next morning, she dressed with deliberate care, a midnight blue suit that spoke of authority without flashiness. As she fastened a simple silver necklace, her phone lit up with a message from Naomi. Quantum Edge stock down 15% this morning. Rumors of board revolt hitting financial news. Ready to rise from the ashes? Sophia tucked her phone away and headed toward the Silverstein Tower, where a different kind of architecture waited to be rebuilt. The return. The 32nd floor of Silverstein Tower hummed with tension when Sophia stepped off the elevator. Executives huddled in whispered conversations stopped mid-sentence at her appearance. Recognition, shock, and in some faces, undisguised hope flickered in quick succession. Ms. Reeves, stammered Bradley Chen, the HR director she'd hired years ago. You're here for the board meeting? I am, Sophia replied with a calm she didn't entirely feel. Seeing the Quantum Edge logo, her design, her vision, brought a rush of emotions she'd thought long processed. William Torres materialized from a corner office, extending his hand. Perfect timing. They're assembled. As they walked toward the boardroom, Torres briefed her in hushed tones. Julian's called this emergency session to request additional funding. He claims the technical issues are fixable with more resources. After burning through how much already? $200 million, with remarkably little to show for it. Sophia nodded, mentally reviewing the strategy she and Naomi had refined over countless late-night calls. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration of the company's mission, its technical integrity, and her own legacy. Torres paused before opening the boardroom door. Ready? She took a deep breath. I've been ready for 15 months. The conversation inside the boardroom halted abruptly as they entered. 11 board members sat around the massive table, with Julian standing at the head, mid-presentation. His perfectly tailored appearance couldn't hide the shadows under his eyes or the tightness around his mouth, signs of stress Sophia recognized all too well. For a moment, Julian simply stared, his composure cracking just enough to reveal genuine shock before his features smoothed into practiced charm. Sophia, he said, his voice a masterclass in false warmth. What an unexpected surprise, is it? She asked quietly, taking in the room. Some faces were new, but others she recognized, including Vanessa Blackwell, whose expression remained carefully neutral. Mr. Torres, said Harrison Powell, who had helped Julian orchestrate her removal. This is a closed board meeting. Ms. Reeves is no longer affiliated with this company. Torres smiled thinly. I invited her as my guest, as is my right as a board member considering her potential return to the company. Julian's expression hardened. Return? There's no position. Actually, interrupted a woman Sophia didn't recognize. That's exactly what we're here to discuss. She stood, extending her hand. Gabriela Ortiz. I joined the board 6 months ago. I've heard a great deal about you, Ms. Reeves, particularly from clients who've implemented your consulting solutions. Julian's gaze darted between them. What is this? Harrison Powell cleared his throat. Julian, perhaps it's time to address the actual purpose of this meeting. I called this meeting to discuss additional funding. No, Vanessa Blackwell said firmly. The board called this meeting to discuss leadership changes. The next hour unfolded like a meticulously choreographed play. Financial reports detailed Julian's mismanagement. Technical analyses documented the degradation of Sophia's original architecture. Client testimonials praised her recent consulting work, while criticizing Quantum Edge's declining performance. Through it all, Julian's facade crumbled by degrees, disbelief giving way to anger, then to desperate bargaining. "This company exists because of my leadership," he insisted. "I secured our funding. I built our client relationships." "And lost both," Gabriella countered. "Ms. Reeves, would you share your assessment?" Sophia had prepared for this moment, but facing Julian across the boardroom, in the very room where he'd orchestrated her removal, made the rehearsed words stick in her throat. She glanced down at her tablet, at the presentation she and Naomi had prepared showing exactly how Julian had gutted her architectural vision for quick gains. Instead of opening it, she set the tablet aside. Quantum Edge was built to provide security solutions that prioritized integrity over expedience, she said simply. That foundation was compromised, not by technical challenges, but by philosophical ones. Her gaze swept the room, meeting each board member's eyes in turn. "I didn't come here seeking Julian's position or to criticize his leadership. I came because this company's mission matters. Its people matter. The clients who trust us with their security matter," Julian scoffed. "Spare us the sentimentality. If you've been brought here to replace me, at least have the honesty to say it directly." Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. The man she'd once loved, the partner who had betrayed her, and found to her surprise that her anger had been replaced with something like pity. "I'm not here to replace you, Julian. I'm here to fix what's broken. If that means taking your position, so be it. If it means working alongside you in a restructured leadership, I can do that too." The stunned silence that followed her statement was broken by Vanessa Blackwell's decisive voice. "I move for an immediate vote on the removal of Julian Mercer as CEO and the appointment of Sophia Reeves as his replacement." Julian's face contorted. "You can't be serious. After everything I've built, after everything you've destroyed," Harrison Powell corrected quietly. "I second the motion." The vote was unanimous, even from board members Julian had personally selected. As security escorted him from the building, his parting words to Sophia were venomous. "You planned this from the beginning." "All of it," she smiled sadly. "No, Julian, you did." That evening, Sophia sat alone in what had once been Julian's office, what had been meant to be their shared leadership space, reviewing employee files and technical documentation. The damage was extensive, but not irreparable. A knock at the door revealed Gabriela Ortiz, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Your team is waiting," she said, nodding toward the conference room where engineers and project managers had gathered voluntarily despite the late hour. "They've been waiting for 15 months. Sophia accepted the coffee gratefully. "Why did you help make this happen?" "You never even met me before today," Gabriela smiled. "I implemented your security protocol at my previous company. When I joined this board and saw what Julian had done to your architecture and to you, I started asking questions. The answers led us here." Together, they walked toward the conference room filled with expectant faces, some familiar, many new, all looking to her for direction. "Welcome home," Gabriela said softly. Sophia squared her shoulders and opened the door to begin the real work of rebuilding. The restoration, 6 months passed like a fever dream. Sophia's days blurred into nights as she worked alongside her team to rebuild Quantum Edge from its compromised foundation. The company's headquarters hummed with renewed purpose. Engineers who had grown disillusioned under Julian's leadership rediscovered their passion, while new talent flocked to join what industry publications were calling the most extraordinary corporate resurrection in tech history. "The Singapore implementation is complete," announced Raj Patel, the brilliant systems architect Sophia had personally recruited from a competitor. Client reports 99.7% security coverage, up from 62% under the previous system. Around the conference table, the leadership team, a careful blend of Quantum Edge veterans and strategic new hires, exchanged satisfied glances. Among them sat Naomi Zhang, who had left her position at a prestigious research institution to become Quantum Edge's Chief Innovation Officer. "That's our 7th successful major client transition," Sophia noted. "Each one smoother than the last." "And the stock price reflects it," added Gabriela Ortiz, who had become Sophia's most trusted board ally. "Up 87% since the leadership change." After the meeting dispersed, Sophia remained at the table, reviewing projections for the coming quarter. The company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving beyond even her optimistic forecasts. More importantly, it was doing so without compromising the principles that had inspired its creation. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Thomas Harrington stood in the doorway, a hesitant smile on his face. As the company's new general counsel, recruited from a prestigious law firm 3 months earlier, he had proven himself not only legally brilliant, but genuinely committed to ethical business practices. "Working late again?" he asked, stepping into the conference room. "Just reviewing the Singapore numbers. They're even better than expected." Thomas nodded, taking a seat across from her. "I actually came to talk about something else. The Julian situation." Sophia tensed slightly. Since his removal, Julian had made legal threats but taken no action, likely aware that discovery proceedings would only further damage his reputation. "What about it?" "He's dropped all potential claims," Thomas said. "Signed the final settlement agreement this morning." Relief washed over her. "That's unexpected." "Not really. His new startup is struggling, and fighting you would only remind potential investors how badly he failed here." Thomas hesitated. "There's more. He's leaving New York. Accepted a position with a firm in Seattle." The news should have felt like victory. Instead, Sophia felt a complex emotion she couldn't immediately identify. Not sadness or regret, but something like closure. "Good for him," she said finally. "Everyone deserves a second chance to get it right." Thomas studied her with undisguised admiration. "Most people in your position would want retribution." "Retribution would have kept me tethered to the past," Sophia replied. "I prefer building the future." Their conversation shifted to lighter topics. A documentary series they'd both been watching, a new restaurant in the neighborhood. What had begun as strictly professional interactions had gradually evolved into something warmer, though neither had acknowledged it explicitly. "There's a benefit dinner for the STEM Education Initiative next Friday," Thomas mentioned casually as they walked toward the elevators. "The firm bought a table, but I don't have a +1 yet." Sophia glanced at him, noting the careful way he avoided meeting her eyes. "Are you asking me on a date, counselor?" His smile was boyish, unexpectedly vulnerable. "I believe I am, Ms. CEO." "I'd like that," she said simply. The following week brought another milestone. Quantum Edge's new security platform officially launched to critical acclaim. At the celebratory gathering, Sophia found herself surrounded by the team that had made it possible, brilliant minds who had chosen to believe in her vision. "A toast," called Naomi, raising her glass. "To second chances and better foundations." As glasses clinked around her, Sophia felt a tap on her shoulder. William Torres stood there with Vanessa Blackwell. "There's someone you should meet," Torres said, gesturing to a distinguished man at his side. "Franklin Reed, CEO of Meridian Technologies. They're looking for a security partner for their global operations." "Ms. Reeves," Franklin said, extending his hand, "your reputation precedes you. I'm particularly impressed by how you've rebuilt this company." "Thank you, but it wasn't just me," Sophia replied, gesturing to her team. Great things are never built alone. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Sophia found herself on the office balcony, looking out over the Manhattan skyline, the same view that had once represented everything she'd lost. Thomas joined her, offering a fresh glass of champagne. "Penny for your thoughts?" "I was just thinking about the journey," she said, accepting the glass. 18 months ago, I thought losing this company was the worst thing that could happen to me. And now? Now I understand it was necessary. The company I built with Julian was compromised from the beginning, built on an unstable partnership. What we've created since is stronger, because its foundation is authentic." Thomas leaned against the railing beside her, their shoulders almost touching. You never asked what happened to Julian's office after you declined to take it. Sophia raised an eyebrow. I assumed it went to one of the executives. Actually, the board converted it into a collaborative innovation space. They named it the Phoenix Room. She laughed, a genuine, uninhibited sound that caught the attention of nearby colleagues who smiled at seeing their usually composed CEO so unguarded. Appropriate, she said, though a bit dramatic. I disagree, Thomas replied softly. Some people rise from personal devastation diminished or bitter. You emerge stronger, wiser, and remarkably compassionate. If that's not a phoenix rising, I don't know what is. The moment between them stretched, filled with possibility. Sophia thought about all the paths that had led her here, the betrayal, the exile, the rebuilding. None of it had gone according to her original plan, yet somehow she'd ended up exactly where she needed to be. Inside, Naomi was gathering the team for a final toast. New projects awaited. Challenges would come. But for the first time since she'd founded Quantum Edge, Sophia felt not just professionally fulfilled, but personally whole. We should join them, she said, turning toward the warmth of the gathering. Thomas offered his hand and she took it, a simple gesture that symbolized everything she'd learned, that true power wasn't found in control or vengeance, but in the courage to remain open to new beginnings, even after the deepest betrayals. Together, they stepped back into the light of the company she had lost, found, and ultimately transformed, not just as its leader, but as its heart.